Hey YouTube, welcome back to Dwayne's World. So do you want to get an edge up on the competition? Well, I do. You want to find out how I'm going to do it? Better stay tuned. Alright, so welcome back to Season 3, Episode 13, here on Dwayne's World. And I'm very excited about this episode because it wasn't necessarily an episode that was planned. Now, for all of us lawn enthusiasts, I'm sure we have a sickness. And what I mean by that is we absolutely love our power lawn equipment. You know, I'm always in the market for a great deal. Even if I don't necessarily need it, it doesn't mean I don't want it. So, without further ado, let me show you guys what I'm talking about, which is the newest addition to the Dwayne's World arsenal. Alright guys, so here she is. This is the newest addition to the Dwayne's World arsenal, but I absolutely love this particular Trucut Commercial Series Edger, mainly because it does have the Honda GX120 motor, which is absolutely one of my favorite motors on any type of lawn equipment. I did pick this up on OfferUp. I got an absolute steal of a deal. You know, I'm not going to tell you exactly how much, but let's just say it was probably close to 90% off of the MSRP. But I have to tell you, even though this thing is used, it looks absolutely brand new. You know, the only thing I really had to do was wash it, give it a little bit of elbow grease, and it is practically looking brand new. All right, Dwayne, so I get it. You got a great deal on a Trucut Edger. But why did you need it? Because you have a McLean Edger that you featured on your channel last year. I had. That's right, I had a McLean Edger. When using that McLean Edger, I would probably say it was overkill for my lawn. I don't have that much concrete bordering where I need to have a straight line edger. In fact, because I have bends in my concrete, a stick edger actually works better to be able to get around those turns. So I got an offer I couldn't refuse on the McLean Edger. And I gotta tell you, that McLean Edger was absolutely clean and pristine for how old that actual Edger was. So old that Edger. Ugh, I had seller's regret. You know, even though I may not use a tool very often, it's always nice to have it when you want it. But I've always been a fan of the power line edgers that are really a commercial series edger. And then a Trucut, which is very similar to that power line edger. Now, when I picked it up on OfferUp, number one, it did not start. That was okay, because I knew more than likely all it needed was a carb cleaning. There seemed to be plenty of compression in the motor. But I wanted to do a couple things, and I did do a couple things. I went ahead and changed the oil, changed the spark plug, cleaned the air filter, and ultimately put a new carburetor on there, and that's what this video is about. I'm going to show you guys how to replace the carburetor on a Honda GX120 motor. Now, I have done carburetor replacements on my channel on the GX160 motor, but I've never done one on the Honda GX120. So, being my favorite motor, I figured, you know what, let me put this on video and show you guys. So with that, let's go ahead and get on to that carburetor replacement. So I've already removed the wing nut here from the air cleaner, but let me tell you, this Honda GX120 air filter actually surprised me because I never worked on one that actually had this type of air filter. Now, this is the typical air filter that I've used on all of my other Honda GX motors, but on this particular one, it is different. The reason why it's different is because, as you notice here, there's this translucent part of the actual air cleaner. In here actually holds motor oil, and there's an actual level that you're supposed to fill it to. Now, let me go ahead and just take off the top here. All right, so you have your little cap there. Put that down to the side. And then you actually have your entire filter element that will come out. So once you have your actual air box disassembled, as you guys can see, there's two separate parts. On the left side here, we actually have our filter element that is basically on the top portion of the housing. And on the bottom part of the housing is our actual oil reservoir that we'll go ahead and add motor oil to. Now, the purpose of why you're adding oil to this particular reservoir is to be able to keep the filter element oiled, so that way it's able to capture dirt or different debris and prevent it from going into the actual carburetor. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and remove that housing there so we can get access to the carburetor. There's three 10mm nuts here I'm going to be removing from the carburetor cover. I'm going to go ahead and use my impact here to make it a little bit faster. Okay, then we have one last 10mm bolt there. Let me just get my choke and fuel position in the right spot here so I can get the cover off. There we go. And there is going to be a little breather tube that comes with it, which you guys see right there. All right, now that I'm in here, I'm going to kind of just clean this up a little bit. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and just back off on that Phillips screw right there that basically holds down our throttle cable. All right, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and just set that off to the side there. So let me just stop here for a second. I just want to point something out. This nut here is actually a very important nut. And the reason why this is an important nut is because it gives you the ability to either loosen or tighten your throttle control. In some cases, people do have difficulty in actually moving their throttle cable. And a lot of times it's because that particular bolt is too tight. So if you're noticing that the resistance here on your throttle lever, either here at the motor or on the other side of the cable, is too difficult to move, go ahead and just back off of that bolt just slightly until you actually have it set the way you'd want. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and remove two 10mm bolts. We have one right here, and we have one here that looks like it's connected to the gas tank. Now I'll get this one off here. All right, so actually what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to disconnect the little cable here. This will make it a little bit easier. There we go. That way I have a little bit clearer sight of what's actually going on here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove the governor spring. I think that's probably the easiest thing to remove first. Now again, I'm not using wire cutters, so you don't want to cut this cable here. I just want to be able to kind of scoot it out of the way here. Oh. There we go. And now I should be able to get off my throttle linkage. Yep, there we go. All right, perfect. We'll just set those out of the way there. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and remove the actual fuel line from the carburetor. Now, one quick tip is you can actually use your choke lever here. On the end of the actual choke lever, you can actually put it into the fuel line there, so that way all your gas isn't necessarily running out of your gas tank. Now we're going to go ahead and just remove the clamp right here. There we go, and kind of just move it out of the way just slightly there. And now I'm just going to grab a little flathead screwdriver here and actually just see if I can kind of press up on the fuel line just slightly. You don't want to go crazy because you don't want to break the fuel line. You just want to kind of give it a little bit of, an assist here to be able to get it off. There, I saw it move. So now I'm going to get my choke lever, have it ready here. Yep, there we go. Oh. We saved it. All right, so it did lose some fuel, but that's okay. But as you guys can see here, kind of holds in the fuel in the gas tank, so we're good to go. It actually is held down by a bracket here on the carburetor. All right, so we're going to go ahead and lift that off there. All right, so now that we got everything out of the way, I think we're good to be able to remove this carburetor. Yep, there we go. Okay. And one last bracket there. Perfect. So now the question is, do we clean this or do we replace it? Well, let me show you guys what I have in store. All right, guys, so this is what we'll be using today in order to replace the carburetor. Yes, that's right, replace it, not clean it. I'm not necessarily a big fan of cleaning carburetors because for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is because of the fact that now you can pick up fairly inexpensive aftermarket carburetors that, in my opinion, work really, really well. Now, this one actually comes from a company named HIPA that I've actually used in the past. And I want to, first of all, thank the nice people over at HIPA for sending me this carburetor for my Honda GX motor so I could put together this video for you guys. Now, what I really like about the HIPA carburetors is they are a direct replacement of the OEM one. And you can pick these up on Amazon, on eBay, and they're very, very inexpensive and, in my opinion, well worth the money. But don't let that low price fool you that you're not getting a good quality carburetor, because I've used this manufacturer in the past and I've had great success season after season when it comes to using this aftermarket carburetor. Now, if you prefer to go with OEM, of course, you can obviously purchase a brand new OEM one, which will set you back quite a few dollars, or you can go ahead and clean your old one. It's ultimately up to you. But let me kind of show you guys what you get in the kit. So you get your actual replacement carburetor, you get new gaskets, a new choke lever, and a new fuel line. Now, it's up to you how much of this you actually want to replace, but there are going to be a couple things from the original carburetor you're going to need. And one of the main things you're going to need is actually this bracket here that actually holds down the gas line. So do not throw that away because the new kit does not include one, so you want to definitely use this. Now, whether or not you want to install new gaskets, new fuel line, new choke lever, that's ultimately up to you. What I've done in the past is I've kind of mixed and matched to make the application work. So with that, let's go ahead and put on the new carburetor. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and start to install the new carburetor. The first thing I'm going to do is install this bracket here. I think I mentioned that this actually holds your fuel line. It doesn't, I apologize. It actually is meant to hold your spark plug wire. You know, kind of looking at the gaskets here, they look like they're in really good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave those and then save the ones that came for the kit for a future day in case I ever need to replace them. Any difficulty actually sliding this over, you can go ahead and just squeeze on the two little bolts here, and I'll kind of bring it in closer together, give you a little more tolerance there. All right, so go ahead and install that guy there. All right, so we'll just push this back as far as it would go. All right, so now I'll go ahead and just put down our spark plug wire there. Okay, looks like it wants to kind of move on me a little bit. That's okay, because I'm actually going to bolt everything down and it'll hold it all together. All right, so now what's next? We're going to go ahead and install the actual carburetor. Again, we have the gasket there. That was the original. All right, so. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to reinstall our fuel line here. So we're going to go ahead and just take off the choke lever here. Some gas may spill out just slightly, so be prepared for that. All right. Oh, got it in time. Make sure you push that down, get that secure. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just re-secure the clamp here. Push that down into place to hold the fuel line in. That looks good right there. Now the question is whether or not I go with the new choke lever or the old one. You know, to be honest with you, I kind of like the look of the new black one, so I'm going to go ahead and go with that. We'll just go ahead and test it out. Looks good. Perfect. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and just be able to tuck the fuel line back in there. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the actual throttle lever. There we go. And we need to install our governor spring as well. Perfect. There we go. All right, so now we just have one other linkage here we'll hook up at the end once we put our throttle lever back on top. All right, so what I did is actually remove this here just because of the fact it's easier to get the linkage attached here with it off. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do that. Give me a little more space. Use my needle nose pliers here just to be able to pull the tension to be able to get it back in the hole. There we go. So that makes it a lot easier, so that way I don't have to fight with that spring upside down to get this one started. So it's kind of a tight squeeze there. Now normally whenever I go ahead and reinstall these, I'll do it by hand. I won't use my impact. I tend to use the impact to get screws out, but it's up to you, ultimately what you want to do. But just because of the fact I'm now going into aluminum, the last thing I want to do is cross thread anything. So this ensures that that won't happen, as where the impact will just go through either way. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and just install the last gasket here. There we go. Push everything back. Nicely holding in place. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and reinstall our throttle cable here. Go ahead and give it a test here. Feels pretty good. All right, so I'm going to kind of just line up my choke lever and gas so I can get my cover back on. And again, remember, we have to reinstall that hose back into the valve cover. Now all we have to do is reinstall our 10mm bolt here on top. There we go. And now just the two 10mm nuts here that hold the cover in place. All right, guys, so I believe there should be a gasket right here that my unit did not have, which is kind of strange, but I could be wrong. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fill that with oil up to the fill line. So make sure you're only filling up the little chambers here and not pouring it into the carburetor. And there's a fill line on the side here that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. Actually, also recommends putting some oil in the filter here, so I'm going to go ahead and just do that, just to make sure it has some on there. All right, so I'll kind of just work the oil in. In fact, we could probably pour a little bit of oil here too. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and put the cover on. Go ahead and reinstall our lid along with our wing nut. Give it a little cleanup. And now the only thing left to do is put some gas in it. Oh, all right, I forgot one last thing. Got to make sure we plug our spark plug back in. All right, so let's go ahead and get it started up here. Turn our fuel on. Choke set where it's supposed to be. Go ahead and increase our throttle there. Turn our switch to on. See what happens. Oh yeah. All right, so let me just kind of share with you some basic information on the Trucut Edger. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. All right, so in order to lower the blade, you're going to go ahead and just pull on your handle here outwards, and you're going to basically just put it down to how far you want to be able to cut into the actual edge. Very easy to use. Again, the same exact height of cut adjustment bar that they use on the Trucut reel mower. All right, so the blade that actually is installed here is a 9" by 2.5" blade. I do plan on getting a replacement blade, but this one's not in too bad a shape, and it definitely should be able to work out. And obviously we have our belt here, but we also have a couple Zerk fittings that we need to be able to service. Now, I've already put a cap on top of the Zerk fitting there, but you have one there and you have one there. Right, so on this part of the edger, this basically controls the tilt of your blade. So if you want your blade straight on a slight angle, ultimately up to you, that's how you'll make that adjustment there. The last thing I just want to point out on the mower that I absolutely love is the pneumatic tire. Now, from what I can tell, it doesn't look like there's an air valve, so not exactly sure how we'd fill this up if it went flat, but I'm sure there's a way to do so, and I'll just have to figure it out if that day comes. But for right now, I absolutely love it because it really makes it easy to transport and provides a very, very smooth ride. All right, so on that last little video clip there, truth be told, I did have to run over that twice because the first time I forgot to hit record. So let's go ahead and take a look here and see how well the Edger did on my back lawn. Now, outside of having to blow off the debris, very, very happy with how crispy this particular edge looks. Now, I did make a little mistake right here. I ended up moving the Trucut a little bit too far to the left, but at the same time, kind of going through the rest of the edge here, it just looks absolutely phenomenal. All right, so I just want to thank again the people over at HIPA for providing me with that carburetor so I could do this video. Absolutely came in at the right time with the Trucut Edger that I picked up. Now, truth be told, I had this carburetor being sent to me either way. I was either going to replace it on my California trimmer, but I thought this would be a much better application and use for that HIPA carburetor. So again, people over at HIPA, thank you very much. I really appreciate all the support. All right, so I think the point of today's video is a couple things. Number one, it's not that difficult to replace a carburetor. Number two, you can get an awesome carburetor at a very, very good price with a great result. Number three is don't let your carburetor get that bad to where it needs to be replaced. But at the same time, it happens to all of us, so I'm really glad that there's easy solutions out there that fix our problems. Now, kind of thinking about this particular video, I absolutely love that Trucut Edger. It looks absolutely phenomenal. The deal I got on it, it's like practically brand new. So, you know, kind of going back to my McLean Edger, I do absolutely regret selling it. But if I didn't sell it, I don't think I would have this Trucut Edger today. There would be no point of even me looking for another Edger. But because I had that seller's regret, like I mentioned, I picked up this Trucut, came in at the right time, absolutely love it. Hats off to my buddy Joel, actually, that actually found this listing and sent it over to me before I could even take a look at it. But there's just something about that Trucut. Maybe it's that pneumatic tire, maybe it's the paint job, maybe it's the Honda GX motor. And that's probably, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest factors, is I absolutely love the Honda GX. So I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I really appreciate all the support. Please Please give me a like on this video, subscribe to my channel, and remember, as always, be excellent and party on.